Okay, so yesterday we had the Caleb Williams story. He was trying to strong-arm his way, him and his dad, out of Chicago.
I heard that has a bunch of BS to it, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
I think his dad's just talking.
You think Seth Wickersham's didn't...
I'm hearing that Seth Wickersham didn't talk to any of these coaches.
Ooh.
How about that?
Got a one-sided deal?
That's a little bit, It's
a Williams-sided deal?
That's a couple of sources telling me that one.
Okay, well, here's Boomer Esiason.
Oh, Boomer.
For 60 seconds.
Queso.
He is getting up on top of his quarterback high horse, and he is just railing against Caleb Williams. Take it away, Boomer.
When you think about this, I think a lot of these kids and their parents are nowadays, and that the level of entitlement is breathtaking. And it's no wonder why he failed initially, and it's no wonder why the coach got fired. So now they go out and get an offensive coach in Ben Johnson, and you know what? Now it's on his ass. It's going to be on his ass to live up to these so-called lofty expectations that he has for himself and that his father has for his son. And I understand, that there could be a discussion, hey, this is where quarterbacks go to die. Well, go fix it. Be the reason that the team is going to turn it around and you be the player that you think you are. And I would just tell them, just keep your mouth shut. You're going into the greatest league that there's ever been for the sport that we all love. You're going to have a chance one day to make $500 million because guys like me and guys before me all went on strike so you could actually make more money. So keep your pie hole shut and go out and play football and earn your keep and earn your respect.
How about that? Keep your pie hole shut.
Yeah.
$500 million. I mean, Boomer, he was 100% right. The proof was in the pudding. Year one was an unmitigated disaster because of just the incompetence that is in every square inch of that organization. So it's totally understandable. And when you have the leverage, he was a guy with a ton of talent. He was an incredible prospect. And so I get why they would have those conversations.
Well, it's easy.
And year one was proof in the pudding, dude.
Yeah, to me, and I've been a part of some really bad football teams, but I never, ever saw a coaching staff not coach a player even when it was bad. That's why when I first heard it about him and him watching tape by himself and all that, I said, man, I've been on some 5-11 teams where even as bad as it was, the coaches were still working with the players and still watching tape and still trying to direct them and still trying to find a way to win a game. Now, like I say, there's two sides of the story here. There's a Matt Eberflus side of the story, which I guarantee you Matt Eberflus is probably saying that's a bunch of BS.
It was probably wheels off on offense, though. I mean, we saw that on that fateful day.
Shane Waldron's a bad offensive
Shane Waldron that was a bad hire.
And in fairness, Eberflus is a bad head coach. He's a good defensive coach. He's a bad head coach. Everything that he did, the way that he handled things, and I'm sure he probably would tell us,
but
I do things differently.
I don't think that a coach would just let a guy go out on his own.
I agree with you on that.
That part of it, if you want to say that Shane Waldron and others were bad at their jobs, I get it. But to say that they didn't work with you and they made you watch film by yourself, I think that's the part of it that I went no. I've like I say, been a part of this. Been a part of some bad teams, watched guys get coached even though we had like a 6-7 game losing streak in a row.
It's still hilarious that they were even considering the idea of foregoing the NFL draft just to go to the UFL.
To avoid it.
Willing to avoid. Yeah. And he got sort of the UFL experience, I think, with the disaster of teammates that he had on his offense as well.
Man,
but the idea that you were flirting with the UFL because the stench of the Bears organization is that rank. That is freaking hilarious. Dude, can you imagine how fired up we would have been if he came here and he was playing for Coach Stoops and the Gades?
The Renegades.
It'd be incredible.
The Gades.
And that really puts a spotlight on what it really is about. And what I think Boomer misses is that this is a negotiation, you know? And I think Boomer is speaking from a perspective that has a lot of respect from the league, but fails to acknowledge the player side of it. It's like, we're giving the players this great opportunity. How could you dare want to go to a different city? It's like, well, I don't have many opportunities to negotiate, but one of them is actually right now. And, you know, as a player, if I know if things go well, I'm going to make $500 million. If things go bad, I get my rookie contract and maybe another contract, but I'm hoping for some sort of Sam Darnold miracle reclamation project to get $100 million, right?
Yeah.
This is a big deal. It's $500 million or maybe my rookie contract and I'm done because these organizations are so incompetent.
Kind of with Boomer, man. I mean, you had Joe Burrow and the rumors like, oh, I don't want to go to Cincinnati. He never said anything like that. He went to a franchise that hadn't won a playoff game in 30 years, and what did he do in year 2? He took him to the Super Bowl. If you're that dude, go be that dude. And, I think that this is a dad who wants to get his name back in the news, and Caleb Williams'
He's a dad looking after his kid.
Nah,
if you want to go be that guy, go be that guy.
Believe in yourself.
You're from Ohio. It might sound fun
Have
to you to
some
go be a
self-belief.
Bengals.
I can be the guy to go turn around and franchise an organization. That's an alpha. That's a leader. That's a QB1. Not, I want to go to the best position possible. That's some coddle, candy-ass crap that we have right now going on in our
That's
society.
some finger painting,
Let me pick my scenario that I want to go to. You know what? Life ain't like that, dude.
Yeah.
How about the other excerpt,
take
though?
bad players and coach them up.
And, man, that offense has a lot of talent on it in Chicago, and they just went and helped him go get a really good offensive line. If Caleb Williams fails, it's on him. It ain't on the Bears.
I mean, this is the kind of crap, though, that I had a problem with Boomer Esiason. It got me pretty fired up. It's just like we have to kowtow to what the owners in the league wants because we're just so lucky to have this opportunity to play in their league. The players are the product. It's a 50-50 agreement that's negotiated on. There's nobody on one side giving the opportunity. The players could say, you're so lucky that I'm giving you my talent, potentially sacrificing my brain, having CTE in the 30s, and I don't want to go play for a crap organization that gives me no chance to win. And making that into this is a bad guy because he doesn't want to go play for a bad employer, I think that's, a toxic relationship with sports.
I like what both you're saying. I will say this is what I do agree with Boomer about. I think athletes are becoming very entitled, though.
Well, the owners have been entitled.
Well,
see,
that's fine.
That's the point I'm making.
I understand.
We don't have. No, you don't understand.
No, I do.
We don't have any problem with the owners feeling entitled to the labor.
I'm all for the NIL stuff. I'm all for. But what we're learning about kids nowadays, Dawson, and you coach them at a very young age. I'd be interested if you coached, say, kids that were 18 and 19 years old. I'd be interested what your feeling about this would be. When it gets tough, we bail.
They're bringing a product to the market that they should be compensated for.
I understand.
And they have a valid negotiating platform.
We bail. That's where I think Boomer Esiason's coming from right now.
And that has no bearing in the negotiation.
It has bearing.
That's up for the player to decide.
It has bearing on what
they want to do.
It has a bearing, and I agree with you about the money thing and all that. I'm glad to the NIL. I think they need to get a handle on it. I think they will. I'm glad players are getting paid. But the minute it gets tough, we quit. That's where we are right now.
And a lot of people texted about the Mannings. I think what they did was crap, too.
Absolutely.
Trying to rig this thing from behind the scenes. Oh, we don't want to go to the Chargers. This is how the draft works. Yeah. You go where you're picked to go. And if you're good enough, you're going to make that team better. If you're not, you're going to fail. I do think there's something about certain spots, Cleveland #1, where it's damn hard to go ahead and turn around whatever the crap storm is.
Well, what about that crap?
Team.
What about that crap in the nation's capital? That kid showed up.
Jaden Daniels did it. Joe Burrow did it. Like at some point, if you are special enough and you are that dude, you are able to overcome all of the other stuff. I do think they should be guaranteed contracts in the NFL. I think what you're saying about the ownership stuff, I agree with you 100%. But I think some of this stuff with let's pick where I want to go, I'd have said the same thing about Eli when he came out of the draft than what Caleb Williams and his dad were trying to pull. You don't get to pick where you go. Unfortunately, that's not how the NFL draft works. Cooper Flagg's not getting to pick where he gets to go. Worked out for him. But he's now going to be it's just not – that's not how it goes. That's not how it goes in sports with the draft, that you get to choose where I end up going, unfortunately.
Because we let rich people decide the rules. Because we consider that as the owner of a franchise, you get unlimited power to decide what the rules are of employment.
I think we're trying to make teams better as a league. I think the draft is geared to try and give fan bases hope that the Dallas Cowboys won't spend $300 million on players when my Arizona Cardinals will spend. And I
respect the league looking out for themselves, but that doesn't change my negotiating position.
No, but in reality, though, what the draft has allowed us to do is it gives everybody the opportunity, whether you're good at it or not.
Yeah.
It gives you the opportunity to build your teams.
And there's a downside to it. Like, the league is going to look at you differently if you pull this off. I just don't think it makes you a bad guy.
I'm not.
One reason or another, you don't want to play for a city.
To me, the problem I have is, like I said, I'm kind of looking at it as a situation where that, these coaches, not all of them are great. Not all of them are not all of them work the hardest, Mike McCarthy. There's guys out there that don't work hard at it, and there's guys that do. But I think it's unfair when players come out and say, well, I didn't do this and they didn't do that. And I think it's kind of BS along the way. I really, really do. I mean, if you want to talk about other things like, hey man, this is, we don't have enough personnel. The front office didn't do enough. I get that part. The coaches, I think the coaches are taking one unnecessarily for not working with the guy. And I don't think that's true.
Good conversation, gentlemen. Thanks for the Sports Hodgepodge, Chief. Woolchuck, Chuck Wagon is next. Where are you taking it?
Yeah, well, I'd like to tell the 214 to go F yourself. You want to come after me
Sounds
and me
like
being a father.
my guy.
That ain't
going
it,
after you
dude.
as a dad?
Yeah, as a dad. That ain't it. We
That's
can
against the
disagree
rules.
on stuff, but you're wrong. The Bears have a good offense, and they just hired the best play caller in football. So your takes are bad, and then you want to come at me as a parent. That ain't happening, 214. I'll give you my number. We can talk about this. We can meet up like men and handle it. I'm not putting up with that crap, 214. I'm not the one to play with, B. All right.
And your breath stinks, 214.
Yeah.